Hello, I'm Hannah, and this is Hannah's Books. Welcome to Victober. Today I want to talk a little bit about what I've been experiencing so far this month. Earlier this year, I made a handful of those random weekly check-in videos where I talked about the events of the week which had just passed. Occasionally, I mentioned political happenings, but in general, I talked about what I'd seen on BookTube, on YouTube more broadly, or on other screens, as well as real-life events outside the house, especially back when they could happen more easily. Often I mentioned big questions that had been raised in the bookish world more broadly. Sometimes I talked about what I'd read that week, and what I knit, or what I cooked, or planted in the garden. At least for the month of October, I think I'd like to try these weekly rambles again. For this month, I want to keep you abreast of what I'm in the midst of reading, not full reviews of books I've finished, but just more casual thoughts on the books I have in progress. If I've seen any screen adaptations, or listened to any audiobooks, what videos I've really enjoyed by other booktubers, etc. I'm thinking that these videos are a place where I'm going to try each week to cobble together some sort of Victorian outfit, or a Victorian-adjacent outfit. Today's may be a low point. You are only seeing the top of me, but honestly, this is my nightgown. A nightgown with a huge rip along one knee, which I have not repaired yet. I suspect a flannel nightcap might have been a better match than my fancy headscarf, but I'm afraid I've misplaced it. In addition to vaguely Victorian costumes, I want to start each of these weekly ramble videos this month telling you about the tea I'm drinking that day. This idea is copied directly from the excellent booktube channel Taking Tea with Catherine. At the start of each of her videos, Catherine chooses a tea and a teacup to tell us about, many of which are related to what she's been reading that week. Do go check out her fantastic channel. Anyway, Catherine inspired me to purchase some special new teas for autumn and to copy her lovely tradition of starting her videos with tea, which I'll do as an homage each week in these regular checkups during Victober. So, this week, my tea of choice is from Hermione & Sons, a tea company based out of New York with an amazingly varied catalog. I think Catherine has been able to visit their shop in the past, but I've only ordered from them online. I'll link to them below, along with details for a $5 off coupon on top of their regular free shipping. This is not sponsored. I just love their tea. In honor of Victober, I am drinking Victorian London Fog from Hermione & Sons with a touch of warmed almond milk. Essentially, the Victorian London Fog blend is an Earl Grey tea with the addition of a little vanilla and lavender. Delicious, and it would definitely be even better on a cold night in front of a cozy fire than it is here in front of a camera with a bright lamp in front of my face. I'm drinking my tea today in one of the 2 pottery mugs I use for tea almost every morning. A mug my father brought home from one of his travels back when I was in grad school many years ago. For years, I was scrupulous about drinking my tea from one mug and my coffee from a different mug. And then I fell in love with this mug, and usually it gets used whether I've made coffee or tea, or cider, or hot chocolate, or steamed milk. Next week, I'll introduce a different blend and a different teacup. The excitement of my world. Well, as for the reading, the first book I started for Victober 2020 is Middlemarch by George Eliot. I've now read about a third of the 800-plus page novel, which I'm reading for the first time, and I absolutely love it so far. I'm really enjoying George Eliot's approach to almost all of the characters, a combination of an almost skewering wit at one moment, paired with a deep compassion and a gentle understanding. 2 of the main characters, Dorothea and Lydgate, are what I think of as my kind of characters, flawed, but wanting to grow, sometimes judgmental, even when they think they aren't, idealistic in ways that are actually sometimes off-putting to others. Both characters are self-aware and sometimes awkwardly self-conscious, but also sometimes fairly blind to the truth about themselves. I'll reevaluate that comment later after I finish the book, but I'm really struck by how much Eliot's book echoes some of the strengths of Jane Austen, her combination of wit as well as the understanding of a broad community especially. But Eliot seems almost as close to what comes after, to Virginia Woolf, for example, with her characters with full interior lives. I've been thinking a lot about Virginia Woolf's comment that this is a book for grown-ups, an awfully strange way to word it if it means what people usually think that quote means. That is, that it is a book for adults. I tend to think of the phrase grown-ups as being a word children use about adults, or that adults use only in jest. Is that just an American thing, or just a quirky usage of my own? But even if Woolf had used the word adult instead, I'm not sure I would even know exactly what that would mean. I'd love to know what you think, whether you've read this book or not. After I've read more of the book, I think I'll be making a full video discussion about Middlemarch. At the very least, I'll have a lot more to say in my next weekly rambles. I do want to mention one really interesting discussion about George Eliot that popped up a couple of months ago. The Women's Prize for Fiction, along with Bailey's, as in Bailey's Irish Cream, weirdly, released a whole series of classic works written by women authors who use pseudonyms assumed to be masculine names, publishing them with the women's birth names or married names instead of their pen names. Although I think the Women's Prize and Bailey's were well-intentioned, the whole project was a little strange. The authors in the series were a diverse lot. Some, like Vernon Lee, lived much of their adult lives under the name they chose to publish under. Some, like George Sand, dressed in masculine clothes and adopted supposedly masculine behaviors, at least at times. Perhaps it would be more appropriate, although still quite ahistorical, to consider these authors as queer, rather than identify them by the name they had themselves rejected. George Eliot was not in that gender-bending category in her private life. She lived as a woman with her birth name, but she chose her own pen name, and hoped her readers would not know otherwise. She had no choice about her birth name, or actually the slight change to her birth name which she used during her youth, and which was published on the cover of the Bailey's edition. The choice she made about that name was the choice not to use it on the covers of her novels, despite the fact that many women authors publishing under feminine names, whether real or pseudonymous feminine names, had been taken seriously as writers before the time when she began publishing. I'll provide a link in the description box to a quite thoughtful essay about this issue of masculine pseudonyms, in case you want to learn more about this general issue or about the specific publication choices. I realize more than ever that I need to read not only the rest of George Eliot's novels, but a good biography of Eliot. I have one in mind, but I've not heard anyone I know and respect talk about it. Do any of you have any recommendations of a good biography of the author? I mentioned a minute ago that George Eliot often feels like the direct literary ancestor of Virginia Woolf, and Woolf is another author whose biography I need to read. Last March, as part of the March of the Mammoths, I started the thick Hermione Lee biography of Virginia Woolf. I had just started it when the world suddenly became unreadable, and I, like so many of you, needed time to think through all that was changing in my personal life and in the world at large. But that Woolf biography is still unread, and it needs to go back on my TBR, perhaps for March of the Mammoths 2021. Well, speaking of Hermione Lee, she has a brand new book coming out, already on shelves in Britain, I think, and due for publication in a few months here in the States. It's a biography of the living playwright Tom Stoppard, and like her Woolf book, it is a mammoth of more than 800 pages. I don't think it will be going on my reading list, at least anytime soon, But one of the side effects of a great author publishing a major new book is that she's likely to be invited to write reviews and thought pieces for various newspapers and magazines. This week, in the New York Review of Books, Hermione Lee has an essay on Marilynne Robinson and her newly released addition to the Gilead set, the novel Jack. While as I read it, I kept thinking about how Robinson and Eliot shared certain preoccupations. Their writing styles are different, of course, but both authors laser in on their characters' interior lives, their own formulations of morality, on main characters who are often aloof or separated from their communities, more so in Robinson, but definitely there in Eliot. Both authors explore the link between understanding, even empathy, and compassion. In her review, Hermione Lee pulls out a quote from Robinson. The author pays attention to the incomprehensible complexity, spiritual, intellectual, and emotional, of anyone we encounter. Fiction is, in short, an exercise in the capacity for imaginative love or sympathy or identification. She works from a sense of the experience of human presence without passing judgment. I suspect George Eliot would have been ahead of me in line to get a copy of Robinson's new novel, Jack. I have a couple of other things I want to mention here. One is an update on my crafting project for the month. Actually, I'm currently still wrapping up the knitting project I made for Shaketube 2020, an asymmetric cotton shawl I'm calling Shakespeare in the Park. All I have left is the bind-off row and then a blocking session, but when it's complete, I will definitely show it off on this channel. It's a very simple project, and if you've never knitted a shawl before, it might be a reasonably good place to start. My knitting project for Victober will be the Dissent Cowl, designed by Carissa Browning to honor Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Until the election here in the States at the beginning of November, the designer will donate all proceeds from the sale of the pattern to the American Civil Liberties Union. My goal is to finish knitting and blocking it by the beginning of November so I can wear the cowl on Election Day, along with the pink pussy hat I knit 4 years ago. My cowl will be a tribute to Ginsburg's strength and abilities, and I'm hoping the calmness that comes with working with wool between my hands will help me find a way to control what are sometimes paralyzing fears about what's happening in the American political world right now. And since it's Victober, I'm pretending that it has a secondary resonance. The cowl's knitted representation of beaded jewelry seems fitting to celebrate the Victorian period. I've gathered together appropriately sized needles and a couple of colors of yarn. My goal is to wind the yarn tonight, or possibly tomorrow, and then cast on soon after. I hope I'll have a little bit of this project to show off to you next week as well. And finally, at the end of each weekly rambles this month, I want to make shout-outs to channels that are new to me, or to booktubers who have made Victober videos I really loved. There have been a lot this week already, and some of them I'll talk about more in the next week's ramble. But today, I just want to mention one. I said before, possibly in one of my Q&A responses recently, how amazed I am to have the opportunity to make friends with readers all over the world, limited only by my own ignorance to folks who make videos in English or comment in English. One channel I have just discovered and have not yet seen linked to elsewhere is Laura from the channel Laura on Air. She's joining in for the Victober fun, starting, I believe, by participating in the Shirley read-along. Her videos often start with beautiful footage of the lovely Italian landscape around her. In addition to discussing her reading, Laura has a few fiber crafting videos on her channel as well, including ones where she discusses crochet projects she designs herself. Go check out her channel and give her some encouragement. Thanks for joining me today for this weekly rambles. I am off to read a bit more George Eliot while sitting in the sun on this beautiful, cool, but sunny day. See you soon. here on Hannah's Books.